Hey, Colorado Springs. This is Jenny Bayless, and I am here with Leah Keeling. Leah, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Jenny?
Good. We are here today with Miller McSwain. This is his second time on the podcast. I'm super excited to have him back. If you guys remember him from last time he was on, probably about a year ago now, and he and his wife bought their first house hack literally right after they graduated from college, which is incredibly impressive way to kick things off. So he is on his second house hack now. And so we wanted to bring him back on and kind of talk about his experience and how his second one's going. So Miller, welcome.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. So, can you fill us in a little bit about where you're at now from the time that we last spoke, and then we'll kind of rewind a little bit and talk about your first house hack and what that's looking like.
Yeah, so since last time, like Jenny said, I was on about a year ago, and it was episode 99, so you can get a whole rundown there. But yeah, so we had moved out here from Tennessee, bought our first house hack right after graduating college. House hack that rent by the room strategy, and since have moved on to the second one that we bought about 2 months ago with Leah, and living in that one now. Some rehabs done, and some rooms filled, so working on stabilizing it now.
That's awesome. So let's kind of rewind, and I'd love to hear what happened with your first house hack, what that's looking like now that you've moved out of it, kind of remote management. Can you fill us in a little bit on the actuals for that?
So there's a good rundown on the last episode, but kind of the gist of the property is it was a totally turnkey. We bought it out of state. We hadn't even moved to Colorado Springs yet, and so it had recently been flipped. It was a 5 bed, 3 bath, or it is a 5 bed, 3 bath. In April of 2022 is when we got it, and so it was like a 4.8% interest rate back then, I think. So a little bit better than today. But yeah, so we decided to do the rent by room strategy on it so that we could, kind of maximize the income from it. Um, the main level was is a 3-2, so 3 beds, 2 baths with like kind of a easily separatable basement. So which was great for a house hack. So my wife and I lived in the basement, had a door put up top, and then basically had our own suite downstairs with 2 beds, uh, living room. We put a kitchenette in, and then there was a bathroom down there. Um, and so, yeah, so that's kind of like the layout of the property. But yeah, so I got the top 3 rooms rented out. We lived in the basement. And yeah, so we were able to do management, locally since we were there. But at the time, we kind of started working on building out remote systems while we were there. So yeah, we could go up and fix a sink if we needed to, but it was good to go ahead and figure out, who are the handymen, how do we sign leases remotely, all that kind of stuff. So we kind of worked on that while we were there. But yeah, so we've since moved out, and that year has ended, and we actually have some actuals for the property, which I thought might be pretty good to share, so you guys can get a sense for how a house hack may actually perform in the spring. So yeah, there's projections, but here's an example of how one actually did perform.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Please share.
Yep. And I do want to mention, so we actually do have the actuals posted on our website too, which I can link to later, at the end of the
Okay,
podcast. But
great.
there's like pictures and videos on there, and actually like real-time performance too, like how it's doing like this month. So that might be
Oh wow,
useful.
that's brave of you to advertise
Yeah, I
that.
mean, yeah, I mean, really, I just want to be really transparent with it, because like,
Yeah.
yeah, there'll be bad years or months or
Hmm.
whatever, but anyway, so give people a good look.
That's awesome.
Um, but the first year turned out, spoiler, like really well. Unexpectedly, I thought there would be so many hiccups, and of course there were hiccups, but um, so I wanted to break it down into 4 categories that you guys talk about. So there's like 4 generators: so cash flow, tax benefits, loan pay down, and appreciation. And cash flow was great. It turned out to be $7,200 for the year. But let me caveat it real quick. So that is assuming that my wife and I were paying rent, right?
Okay.
So because we would be paying rent somewhere else anyway. So I think it
Yeah.
makes sense to throw those numbers in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And remind everyone how much you put in to purchase this property and get it
yes.
rent ready.
So it was so some of it we got kind of lucky on, but it was 460 grand when we bought it. And we ended up, that was 36,000, yeah, that we put into it. So that was, down payment and closing costs. And we didn't really have any startup costs, but that's, not common, but we had a family member give us a bunch of furniture before we moved. So, we furnished all the shared spaces and that was using their furniture and stuff. So startup costs were lower than usual, but yeah, it was 36 grand. So that was like a 20% cash on cash return. That's what it's looking like for year one. So
That's pretty good.
yeah, no, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's
uh,
fantastic.
and so that was, for April to, the end of December. So a little over half a year there, but so cash flow was good. Tax benefits, our taxes are filed now. So we have all of that info, but that ended up being around like a $500 tax benefit.
Hmm.
So that's about a 1%, return on investment there. Loan pay
Yeah.
down.
Oh, can we
What?
back up on the tax
Yeah, totally.
benefit? So,
Yes.
I know that we've done a couple of episodes, and hopefully we can link to it in the show notes about some really in-depth discussions about depreciation. Certain strategies that you can implement on that, but just really, kind of high-level depreciation is essentially a non-cash expense that the IRS allows real estate investors to take on their structure. So, Miller was able to offset his taxes via the $500 that he didn't actually spend. So it was an expense for his taxes, but not in his pocket. So just wanted to kind of highlight that because it's something that's overlooked quite a bit, I think.
Yeah. And so the way that we determined that is that on your tax return, you can go back and look and see how much, you actually depreciated of the property. So it's a little bit different for a house hack. So I think the total depreciation would normally be like 8 or 10 grand or something, but they used like a portion of it since
Mhm.
only part of it was our business. Anyway, so they used a portion. So that was around like 5 grand, I think, and then you apply whatever you multiply that by your effective tax rate, which is probably on those forms somewhere too. So
Yep. Awesome.
cool. Yeah. So then loan pay down. So this is an awesome return that I think is also overlooked.
Yep.
But it's the most guaranteed return you have, in my opinion. So this
Mhm.
is your tenants paying down your loan, which builds equity in your property. So in this case, that was around $4,900, which is 13% return on investment. So killing it there too. And that's totally guaranteed. And then lastly, appreciation. So this was our killer, and not really a killer, but this was our negative one. So we were we were negative, and this is a paper return to you, right? Like this isn't something that's realized, so it's just kind of hypothetical. But
Mhm.
just for tracking purposes, it was negative 4,800. So we bought it for 460, and it was worth around 455 by the end of the year. So
Okay. Okay. Which, as you mentioned, is not really a part of a calculation until you go to sell it. So if you guys are going to sit on this thing for 30 years, I imagine it will probably be worth more than 460 in 30 years from now. So, you can cross that bridge then. But like you said, yeah, it's just kind of a nice to have number. But yeah, so
yeah,
well, thank
it's
you.
just something to look at. So when
Absolutely.
you add them up, it was like around 20% total return. So that sounds great to me.
Yeah. That's a pretty good first property purchase. So congratulations on knocking this one out of the park because usually your first property is just kind of the experimental one. And if you can kind of break even, you've done pretty good on that. But yeah, you guys are just absolutely doing phenomenal on that. So um what have you guys learned from more of a managerial side of things? Was it harder or easier managing tenants than you had anticipated? What were some of the hurdles that you guys had to overcome?
I think it was probably easier than it would be on most people just because of our situation. So rent by room is inherently like a more management intensive strategy. But my wife and I just graduated college, so we're coming out of this rent by room scenario that we've been doing for 4 years or so. So we're aware of all of the kind of issues that could crop up. So we're kind of able to nip them in the bud, kind of before they became a real issue. So some of the things that we did, and I think I mentioned this in the previous episode, but we would label the shelves in like the pantry and the fridge, so each bedroom has a space. You're not encroaching on anyone else's space. Another thing we ended up doing later in the year was bringing in a cleaner. So a cleaner would come through all the shared spaces, once a month, and keep everything tidy there. And other than that, I mean, there's just online systems that you can use, right, to do all your lease signing and rent collection and stuff like that. So that's all pretty standard, but took a lot of weight off of our shoulders. Um, and filling the rooms wasn't too difficult because we only had to fill three, but as we'll probably get to later, it is much more difficult now because we have a lot. We're basically running 2 small apartments now, so
Mhm.
we have a lot of tenants at the moment. So
Yes, I imagine that it probably gets a little confusing when you're on number 2 because, each room is its own lease, which is rather paperwork intensive, at least in my experience, like, self-managing my properties and whatnot. It's like, who is this person again? Where do they live? Like, what's the story on this thing that I don't remember? So just having to kind of, remember everything, I think is a little hard. Did you guys have any like drama or anything like that occurred, or was everyone just really like keep to themselves and
yeah, we didn't really have any issues between anyone, and I think a lot of that'll just come down to your screening practices,
Mhm.
you know. So we screened very thoroughly and made sure that people were good people. We didn't necessarily do like I've heard of some people throwing like a questionnaire in to see like, oh, like how well this roommate may match the other like housemates. We didn't necessarily do that. We just made sure everyone was that they were good people, and then in that case, there wasn't really any big issues to overcome between them. So.
Great. That's great. Yeah, that's I think probably the number one objection that Leah and I hear for
Yes.
people when we bring up this strategy is
Yes.
they just don't want to deal with the people part of it. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's always like the hang up that people have. Like, oh, these numbers look great, but I don't feel like managing 5 people and 5 leases.
Yeah.
So
But I think it just highlights based on the numbers that you've shown, Miller, is like you put in the work, you get the reward for it. So
mhm.
it's just another one of those things. Like I always say, real estate is just such a an inverse relationship between effort and return. So you can put in a lot of effort and get a lot out, or you can just put in a little bit of effort and yeah, it's just you can expect mediocre returns. Like you can't put in zero effort and expect outsized returns, or else everybody would be doing it, which would then kind of get everything back to baseline. So that's just kind of my little soapbox on that. And I think that you're showing just the amount of effort that goes into it is paying off for you, especially year one out of college. You have 2 properties under your belt, which is phenomenal. Um so you guys moved like the day after you guys qualified, right, for your second house hack.
Yeah, I gotta optimize all of our time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I love hearing that. Yeah, you're like, day 366 or whatever,
yeah.
closing on your next one. So tell us a little bit about, you described your first property. Did you want to emulate that exactly? Because it seems like your second property is a little bit different, just in terms of location and layout, and was just curious about the transition between the strategies within your already defined strategy for the house itself.
Yeah, so we took a little bit of a different approach. So with the first property, like I said, it was totally turnkey, which was great because I mean we were moving, from out of state to here, so we didn't know the market. We didn't have connections to contractors. I mean, I didn't have the confidence even probably to talk to a contractor and walk through a rehab at that point anyway. So it was totally turnkey. But this go round, I knew some contractors and stuff from networking events and all of that. Um, just had more confidence in the rehab because, I worked on the other house a little bit myself and whatever. I knew a little bit more than I did before. So we figured that, yeah, we'll keep doing the rent by room strategy because we want cash flow. But it would be great to build, some forced equity by picking something that needed, some work that we could do to it. Um, so really what we ended up looking for was not necessarily a house that needed work. We were looking for houses that were fine as is, but that we could add bedrooms to without a ton of headache, because then that would increase our cash flow and also increase the value some with adding a handful of walls, right? So nothing too tough there.
Yeah. So Leah, I guess, can you describe a little bit about, at that point in time, the spring, what it was like to try to find a property that would fit this? Because, we're just constantly battling really, really low inventory, and just kind of curious to hear how you guys were able to locate and negotiate the one that you ended up purchasing.
Yeah, I mean, of course we had low inventory like we have for years now, really. But I find that Colorado Springs has like great setups for this. So like I think our first day of showings, I mean, we only had one day of showings and we found this one. I think we looked at like 8 properties that day. But we kind of know the areas and like the size of houses where we're like, okay, we could probably make this work. And it's like along that Powers corridor, east of Powers, where like a lot of those houses have those perfect setups.
Mm-hmm.
So it really wasn't tough for us to find this one. I mean,
Good.
one day.
Yeah. And I know when you sent it to me, we are kind of chatting about the different options that they had. In addition, it's STR eligible for when they move
Mhm.
out. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you guys plan on doing, but it's just so nice to have multiple different options at your disposal that you can choose from and, pick the most optimal as opposed to being pigeonholed into a certain type of strategy. So I think
Mhm.
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's always fun looking for these houses, and we
Yeah.
have another client that's a few miles up the road, basically exact same layout.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So kind of with like the basement suite, middle common area and then upstairs rental bedrooms. So basically same setup. A lot of those houses are built like that. So it wasn't too difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was negotiations like on this one?
We tried to lowball, like we were like, it had been on the market for what, like a month and a half or something,
Yeah.
maybe a month. So we were
Yeah.
like, we're gonna just go in like tough on this one.
I mean, that is an eternity in Colorado Springs market
Yeah.
time. So
So I think we went at like I think it was listed at 440, 435, right?
Mhm.
And then we went in at like 400 with max concessions. They were like, no, we're cool with the concessions, but we just did a price drop and we're not going to go that low. I mean, the house was definitely worth more than 400.
yeah.
But we were kind of just seeing how desperate the seller was,
Yeah. I
Might
mean,
as
I don't
well
think there
test
was
the
any.
waters,
Yeah, I don't think there was any risk in it. It's because it had been on the market for so long. Like the odds that
Mhm,
someone else was gonna, purchase it or looking at it the same day was like pretty low at that point. So
Mhm.
yeah, we kind of went for it, and it didn't work, but I mean
It
that's
didn't
fine.
work.
Hey,
But
all you can do is try. So
we did end up getting max concessions, though. I think it was like 12,000
Yes.
that's
just
great.
right off the top. So, I
So
mean, that's
is
cool.
list price with concessions, is that what you guys settled on, or
I
did
think
they
it
lower
was
the price a little bit?
5K under. So I think we
Okay.
got it at 430, right, Miller?
Yep, that's
Yeah,
correct. Yep.
430 with 12K concessions.
Okay. Yeah. So that's something that we've been seeing, over the last year as an option for buyers. Whereas before, if the seller saw concession on an offer, they would kind of discount it. But now it's becoming more commonplace. And I think that is very
Mhm,
beneficial for buyers because they're able to bring less cash to the table. So it's going to
mhm,
cover things like your closing costs for your lender, some, title costs, that sort of thing. And I think that it's, very beneficial to pump up your cash on cash return a little bit. So great job on that.
I think
Yes.
we put concessions on like 9 out of 10 offers and they've all been accepted.
Yeah.
Like I just do it on everyone. Like we're taking full advantage of this.
You might as well. I mean, yeah, if you guys are the only offer on the table and if they really don't want to do it, all they can do is counter you and,
Mhm.
and just
Yeah.
move forward from there. So
Yeah.
that's great. So Miller, can you tell us a little bit about I guess, well, I kind of want to go through inspection and everything because I think that would be a good learning point. So we can talk about that. But then I'd also like to hear kind of where you're at right now. I know you guys just moved in, but kind of like a where you are and where you think it's going to go numerically for this one.
Yep. So as far as like the acquisition went, yes, I think we're at 430 purchase price, and yeah, so this was 2 months ago, so we're at like a 6.5% interest rate, so close to a couple points higher than our last one. So that was something to kind of deal with there. But yeah, so acquisitions, the inspections, I don't think there was anything too crazy. The only thing that we really worried with was the basement. Well, there were two things. The basement, it seems that the previous owner had, finished it himself. So I don't think it was permitted, and we were worried about the floors, the walls not being floated, which in Colorado, from my understanding, is necessary in the basement because the ground expands and contracts.
Hmm.
And so if the walls are floated, there's like kind of a little bit of a buffer space for the floor to go up and down and not like destroy your house.
Yeah.
So that's my understanding. And we were concerned that it wasn't, because there was a portion in the utility room you could see that was not floated. Um, and we kind of pushed back on it, and he pushed back on us saying it was. And it just ended up being that we just had him cut out, a couple sections of the baseboard, just showing that you could see that it was floated. So didn't end up being a huge deal, but it would have been a huge deal if it wasn't floated, because I imagine we'd have to redo a good portion of the basement.
Oh, absolutely. I think that would kind of be a deal breaker at that point.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just because of the
So
potential structural issues down the road.
And just like seeing how the basement was finished, it was like you could tell it looked professionally done. Like it looked really nice. And I'm like, why didn't they, permit this? And then through inspection, the listing agent like kept on saying about how he owned his own construction company and like he wouldn't do it the wrong way. And we're just like, just show us it's floated. So they
yeah.
did. And the electrical was all funny down there too.
Yeah, there was a
So
couple of
we
like
pushed back on
handyman.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
there
was
was
like
some like
he just DIY'd it, basically.
Okay.
yeah, like some of the electrical was weird, and like the like hot and cold in the shower was flipped. So there were like signs that it was handyman, kind of
Mhm.
done a little bit. But I mean, we've been down here, for a couple months now, and so we haven't had any issues. The electrical was fixed during inspection. The hot and cold was flipped, but other than that, downstairs has been great. So yeah.
Good.
Um,
And it has a little kitchenette that was already in there,
yes. Oh,
Oh,
good
that's
point.
great.
like a
Yeah.
sink and a fridge, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I should have
Mhm.
mentioned that. So as far as us house hacking, my wife and I are in the basement, and so having a kitchenette is super helpful down here. We still cook upstairs some, but we do have like a little like tabletop oven down here and stuff like that. So, um, yeah.
So definitely listen to Miller's previous podcast about how he does the laundry setup in his previous house hack. Is it similar to how you guys are doing it now? Is it set up a little bit different? How are you guys handling laundry?
Yeah. So laundry is better here. We didn't have to do any sort of workaround like we did previously. Yeah, laundry's up on the main level, so they all have access to it, and yeah, we just go up there to do our laundry, too. So yeah, no big deal there.
Great, great. So tell us a little bit about what occupancy, what you guys are seeing so far for renting out the bedrooms and just that whole process.
Yeah. So slower than we'd like. This is going to be like a broken record, but last time on the podcast, I said that I listed the rooms too high, to test the waters at our last house, and I waited too long, like slowly brought them down, and I said I would never do that again. Well, I did that again, uh, and well, because my thinking was this house is in like a much nicer location than our previous house, like super suburban, sidewalks, friendly neighbors, all that kind of stuff, and so I thought rents would go for more because of that. It would seem that that is not the case. Our rooms that have shared bathrooms, they rent the same here as they do at the other place. So I don't guess it's something that rent by rooms tenants, residents necessarily care about. They're really just looking at price for the most part, I think, and they like that we, provide utilities and a cleaner and all that, and shared supplies and furnish the shared areas. But beyond that, I don't think they really care about location too much. It's just like, is it close to my job? Yes, no, okay, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's really good feedback for everyone listening.
yeah, so
Mhm.
that was something that we learned. So yeah, if you're looking for rent by room, don't focus on maybe like how nice the neighborhood is. Just focus on proximity to whatever renter pool you're kind of going for. It's definitely a big tip there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, as far as like rents actually go, so to give some data points, so our bedrooms with shared baths go for around like 750 right now, and that's goes for the other house as well. They're about 750. And the master at this room though is the exception. So we were still furnishing everything here, and still doing some rehab type stuff. And I just kind of threw it up, like I said, kind of a pie in the sky sort of price. And I threw it up at $1,000 a month, just because we weren't ready for anyone to move in. And someone, bit the hook and we reeled them in. So we do have someone rented at $1,000 a month right now. And I part of it is because, well, it's the primary bedroom, it has its own bathroom, but it
Mhm.
also does have views of Pikes Peak out the window.
Oh,
So,
great.
that's of course is like the cover photo, and the listing and all that kind of stuff. So I think that helped a lot. And but I don't expect it to be repeatable. When this person moves out, I would assume probably like 850 to 950 is probably more reasonable, honestly.
Okay.
So
And
yeah.
then do you guys have the two bedrooms in the basement kind of personally blocked off for while you're living there, or are you only occupying the one bedroom?
Yeah, so there's technically 0 bedrooms in the basement, and there is still technically 0. There's just there's what could have totally been a bedroom if this guy just put a door, like, just to my left right now, like, it just
Okay.
just needs a door. It even has, like, closets and all
All
of that.
missing was a door. It was so strange.
Yeah, so, I
Like
mean, he
he
could
could
have.
have called it 4 in the listing.
Huh.
Oh, totally, yeah,
He
he
I
he
called it
can
could have.
see the egress window
it
behind
has a
Yeah.
you.
window on
So,
the side.
yeah.
Yeah,
Very
so
weird. But
yes, so that's where our bedroom is, and then there's, like, kind of like a small, like, living room down here as well that will be converted to a bedroom, and there's, like, a door at the top of the staircase, so, yeah, it's still,
Okay.
like, a pretty private unit. I At the last house, I cooked everything downstairs because we had a kitchenette, and this kitchenette's smaller, so actually I go cook upstairs, but other than that, yeah, we're kinda self-contained down here.
Okay, great. And then when you guys are going to move out, you would put the bedroom up on this one and then convert a bedroom for the open area in the
Yep,
basement to make
yep.
it. Okay, great. So we're talking 750 with two bedrooms upstairs, 1,500 there plus the 1,000, so you got 2,500. And then what is your mortgage on this one?
It is around 28. Oh, no, I think it's 3 with, like, taxes and insurance, but yeah,
Okay.
like, right around 3,000 flat, I think, with taxes and
Okay.
insurance,
So
yeah.
you're paying $500 plus carrying everyone's utilities, maintenance, that sort of all the not very fun expenses that you have to pay for. So yeah,
Yes.
as you can attest, $500 to live is pretty darn good, seeing as how bedrooms are renting for $750. So you're out ahead on that, and plus you own the home, so you're getting all those benefits to that. So I mean, I think this one's going to be another home run, and even at 6.5%, I mean that, yeah, you're doing phenomenal on all aspects of that. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so that's great. So what's the plan for next year? Are you going to do something similar to this? Or are you guys getting tired of it?
So, yeah, so I think we'll still continue to house hack for the foreseeable future, every 12 months or close to it, no matter what. Um, and ideally we would do it like 8 times, who knows? That's a lot. So,
you want to
but
you want to
whatever.
beat Jeff White's record, right?
Yes, that's
Isn't
actually what I'm
Yeah,
going for.
yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, so that would be ideal because I mean, it's as close as you can get to getting a free house. It's
Hmm.
5% down, which is still a lot. I mean, like, we're putting 35 grand, all in eventually. So it's still a lot, but it's a lot closer than you can get otherwise. So we'll continue doing that. Moving every year. It's inconvenient, but that's fine. But in addition, we are trying right now to buy investment properties as well, non-owner occupant properties that we would rent by room as well. We have all the systems in place at this point. We know how to find the deals. We really know how to manage the deals. So kind of our mission right now is we're doing a lot of networking, helping out folks as we can, connecting folks, and then looking for potential partners that want to be uh, really passive and provide capital for these
Hmm.
while we find the deal and manage the deal. And then, huge benefit to them. They actually get cash flow in this market in which,
Yeah.
you can't get cash flow day one, hardly at all with, any strategy really. So you get cash flow in this market and plus you get all the appreciation. So just trying to offer that opportunity to, potential partners there. So
Yeah, anyone who's listening, that sounds like a good idea, that, Miller and his wife are going to take on the headache piece. If you wanted to, finance it, definitely reach out to him, and just kind of see what if you guys are a good match or not. Definitely want to give that shout out there. I think that's another good option for people, is that, some what did they say? It's like time, money, and knowledge, is that it? Or something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah, like hustle,
Yeah.
money, and then there's another one.
Yeah, so you gotta bring one of those to a partnership. But if you can kind of marry up, one or a couple of people that have those complementary options, I think that's really good.
Yeah,
So
hustle, money, and knowledge. So we
yeah,
have the hustle and we have the knowledge. So
yep,
Bring the money.
yep. No, I think that's great. So I know we were kind of chatting a little bit beforehand, and this is kind of a little bit of a divergence from your specific story, but we were talking about networking and how we find that that's pretty important skill to have. Even if it's something that's hard. If you're a bit of an introvert, to kind of go and meet people. So can you kind of share your experience with that, and just kind of maybe people that are sitting on the fence right now to go to that networking event, what you've gained from that?
I think networking is the most important thing, business related, that I do. It's, anyone can manage, our tenants for us and all that kind of stuff, but nobody can really go network and, I don't know, put our, our name out there, build our personal brand like for us in that way. So I think networking is hugely important. And if you are an introvert, I think that's actually fine. I don't think I am. I like going out and talking to people, but even if you are an introvert, if you go to these meetups, and a lot of the time I'll tell myself, okay, I want to meet with one person that I like really connect with, and then walk away and we have each other's contact info. And one thing that I think people maybe don't do as often as they should, every time you leave a meetup, whoever's contact info you have, talk to them, send them a message like as soon as you leave, that's fine, like, hey, nice to connect with you, whatever. But even after that, make sure that you follow up on some sort of schedule that you can set up however you want to, but chat with them every 3 months or a month or 6 months or whatever. um, if anybody's listened to this and I've met you at a meetup, I bet you get a text from me every 3 months or 6 months just to see what's going on. And Jenny and Leah, you guys both got Christmas messages from me and New Year's messages. It was all planned, I hate to tell you that. And that doesn't mean it's not genuine. I thought about it and thought to make a system for you guys. So
Do you have like a CRM, or do you have just some sort of like very intricate Google suite going on?
yeah, so it started out as just a Google spreadsheet, and there were some formulas in there and whatever, but you don't even have to have that. You could just have a column for name, phone, and follow up date, or last time I talked to you, and then follow up date. It could be as easy as that. I do use Podio as like a CRM now that kind of helps with that, but it wasn't that until like 2 weeks ago, and it worked fine out of a spreadsheet. So,
That's
um,
great.
but yeah, so I think that's incredibly important. And that way you can just keep up with contractors you meet, agents you meet, lenders you meet. There's a whole directory of those. So when I need something done, there's a lot of people I can talk to. And you have a lot better odds of finding a good person because you have many people to kind of sift through. So, um, but anyway, so that's great. One other thing to mention there real quick. So yeah, there's a lot of like free events around the springs, and if you go
Mhm.
to meetup.com, there's plenty of them in there. Um, if you just search real estate, or their Envision hosts some in Denver, so there's some to go to there. But something I started doing recently was going to I joined Brandon Turner's paid mastermind group, which is, I mean, this isn't a plug or anything necessarily, but it's just been great for me. So it's $300 a month, which may sound kind of crazy, but I think there is a lot of value in something like that. Um, and with that, I personally host the local meetup for it. So it's a national group, but we meet once a month. And anyway, I think there's a lot of value in going to an event that kind of has a paid barrier, which is like kind of unfortunate. But I know that every person I talk to there has already, paid their dues, paid the piper. They're really into it. Whereas if you go to a free event, you'll still meet great people. And I've met a lot of great people, but you may talk to 5 people before you find someone that you really mesh with or that's really serious. And if you are in some sort of filtered group, I think there's a lot of value in the fact that that group's already a little filtered just because there's a buy-in. So something to consider that may not be for everyone, but I think it's been very beneficial for us. Yeah.
Yeah, just curious, what would you say the general experience level is in that group? Would you say it's more kind of people that are, more intermediate investors, or is there still, a good handful of beginners as well that are just very, very serious about it?
Yeah, it's totally mixed. And the good thing about it is it's it's not even a real estate group. You focus on all the different areas of life. So the goal of the group is to be like very well rounded. So you focus on family and business and a handful of other things, fun, all that kind of stuff. Um, and even within that, it's since the buy-in is sort of low, $300 a month, like they get a lot more expensive than that. There's people in my group and that go to the meetup that don't have a deal. There's people that are multimillionaires at this point. So it's a great mix of people where you hear I don't know exactly the saying, but you want to be able to pull people up and you want to be pulled up by others. So it's a great group kind of for that. There's people above me and below me, so we can all kind of help each other, I think. Yeah.
That's great. And I do like to hear that it's not just real estate focused too. Well, yeah, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I think a lot of people kind of forget the whole purpose of investing in real estate is to, create a better lifestyle for yourself. And I think it's kind of hard to lose, or it's easy to lose sight of that sometimes. So to have that kind of staring at you in the face, on a monthly basis, I think that's probably a really good thing. So you don't get, too focused on business and forget some of the more important things in life.
Totally agree. So in this group, you're in subgroups of like 5 to 6 people, and they might be focused on different areas of life. So somebody might help me like with my marriage, and somebody might help me with business. Somebody might help me with planning an awesome vacation just to go have fun. So it's a really well-rounded, mindset to have talking with these folks every week and holding each other accountable. Yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Miller, I'm just blown away with, kind of your focus. When we met, I don't know, a few years ago now, you told me this is what you're going to do, and you have done it. And we don't often meet first-time investors that have such a clear, focused path of how they're going to execute on a strategy. So I'm just incredibly impressed by that. And I can't wait to see what you guys continue to do. I mean, I think that I'm going to put this out there. I think you're going to beat Jeff's record on the house hacking. And I'm also very excited to kind of see how you do. Like you said, the venture that you're hoping to meet your goal this year of a non-house hack room by room purchase, however you acquire that. So I'm very excited to see how that plays out. But I guess if you had any parting words, anything you wanted to share with anyone, or we can wrap it up from here.
Only thing is, like I said, networking is super important. So I hope to see some of you guys at some of these Springs meetups that you can find on meetup.com. So that's
awesome.
all.
Miller, how can people reach out to you if they want to chat with you about your story, or just have general questions, or maybe even want to partner with you? What's the best way people can get in contact with you?
Yeah, if anybody's interested in chatting right by room, you can check out my Instagram. That's at my name, MILLER MCSWAIN. And on there's a link to the website, and there's phone number on there and stuff too. But feel free to direct message me on Instagram. That'd be great. So
awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you tuning in for this one. Miller, Leah, thanks so much for jumping on the podcast, and we will see you all soon.
Thanks for having us.